Welcome to the Mindset Mutiny. I am your host, Mike Ivanov. Join me as we challenge the status quo, break free from self-imposed limits, and redefine what's possible. What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Special episode today, number 10. We have a powerhouse of a guest joining us. I would like to introduce entrepreneur Nick Blake. Nick is an accomplished entrepreneur with a master's in business and the general manager of Car Key Connect. He's not only a passionate leader in the automotive industry, but a fitness enthusiast who knows how to blend relentless drive and sharp vision to turn ideas into reality. Nick is also the host of the Elevated podcast, where he shares inspiring stories and insights to help others rise above their limits. His story is one of grit, ambition, and the kind of mindset that refuses to settle. Get ready to dive into a conversation packed with insight, inspiration, and actionable wisdom. Let's welcome Nick to the show. What's up, brother?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to kind of go over the things that you and I have been talking about for the last couple of weeks. It's such an honor, and what you're doing with this podcast is truly inspiring.
Hey, man. Good to see you. It's been a little while since I've seen you on video, so thanks for jumping in tonight. For everybody here, Nick and I are on different sides of the country. Nick's about 4 hours difference. He's a part of my circle that started a little while back. And we've always kept in touch, and we've always talked about different business ideas. And, you've talked to me about the podcast and different things around how to get it done, what platforms to use. And that's all been very helpful. So thanks so much. But, I like to mention that, we've never met in person. This was a relationship that have built through knowing similar people. And then you and I just kind of reaching out to each other and talking and trying to get better every single day. So for people that are building that circle, and I talked about that previously on a different episode, it can be anybody from anywhere. It's just how does that person make you feel? What kind of energy do you get from them? And what is that conversation like when you have time to chat? So hell yeah, man, this is perfect. I'm pumped.
Yeah,
So if you want, maybe I'd like to just kind of discuss how, you and I got together.
absolutely. And I just to backtrack a little bit, I started the Elevated podcast in 2020, and at that time, this was the beginning of COVID. I just finished 75 hard towards the end of COVID. There, gyms had shut down last 15 days. Had to do these outdoor workouts and make it work, make it happen. But um, as soon as I finished 75 hard, I was out of work and I was unemployed, and I knew that in that moment I wanted to put my energy into creating something of my own, and that's where the Elevated podcast came from. Fast forward a couple of years later, 50 plus episodes, had a lot of awesome guests on, and it connected me with a lot of great people, and I'm extremely grateful for the reason that this podcast is even taking place right now. Having you on as a guest and sharing your story and getting it out there. I was humbled to find out that I was the first one or one of the first people to actually, hear that story. So it's incredible, and I appreciate you for having me on. That's all.
Yeah. Well, listen, Nick, it's really special to have you here. You were the first one that I ever publicly told my story to, right? Very, very few people that knew what was going on. I would say one person knew all the details, and that was my wife, and two other guys knew a teeny bit, not the depth of how bad it was, but when those guys were driving you to the hospital with panic attacks, you had to tell them something. So uh, when I got on to tell you my story, I had back in 2019, I had a serious mental health problem that had been affecting me for quite some time, and it kind of came to a head. And 10/19 of 2019, I told my wife I was going to take my life. and I loved her, and I hoped that she was cool with it. You know, it was a crazy time, and I was in a crazy place, and getting on the podcast to talk about that with you was empowering for me because up until that point, I was extremely ashamed of that. I always thought that a man needed to be, you know, very strong, and that if anything ever happened to a man mentally, you know, they were weak and all that bullshit. So, you know, what I went through is probably the best thing that ever happened to me. Not only did it bring a lot of perspective to my life, and uh, I've told you before, and I mentioned it on the episode, and anybody that hasn't heard it, you got to listen to it. I'll put it in the show notes. But I told you it's the best thing that ever happened to me, and I still feel that way today, even more so. So getting on the podcast with you, you developing that platform gave me a chance to springboard from that, and you got my story out there. I got a lot of feedback from people that were very supportive of it, and I realized that what I was ashamed of affects a lot of people, and talking about uh, it can empower others to heal and to grow from what they've dealt with. So, you know, to be honest with you, Nick, I don't really give a fuck what people think about me. So I don't mind talking about it. And I'm going to do that to share with others and to help people. So that was also part of starting Mindset Mutiny. That's kind of my why. And I mentioned that, this is me trying to pay it forward to others. And in every episode, you may think I'm talking to you directly, but what I am doing is I'm telling you about everything that I didn't want to admit about myself. So every episode is something that I struggled with and something that I've dealt with and have personal experience with. So I truly believe I could save somebody 10 years and really help them with whatever mental issues they're struggling with. I'm not a doctor, but I am somebody that's been to the bottom, had to look themselves in the face, and had a brain that was unraveling on them and was literally trying to do itself in. So I've been back from that. I'm at the best of my game, and you've seen me accomplish a lot of things in the last few years. So again, we're going to talk about that today. I'll tell my full story sometime on this podcast too, just to make it fitting. But if you know, we won't die on that hill. So again, thanks for joining. I wouldn't be where I am today if you hadn't created that platform and let me tell my story. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. You are a part of something much bigger than you will ever know.
And that's so humbling to hear, man. And I don't wanna take any emphasis away from, like, how important that is. I can call my podcast a success purely based off of that one story. And believe it or not, I've gotten some good feedback from a lot of different people that have only consumed it and not actually attended. And man, oh man, I can't wait for you to continue to have that fuel your fire, because that's what's going to happen. What I really love about what you're doing with your podcast is you've done an amazing job in creating something that people can put on at any moment when they are not in the right mind frame. One of the biggest issues I notice for people, myself included, I am by no means immune to the the drag that your mind can create. And sidebar, one of the worst things that I've noticed myself doing is I don't want to do something in the future is what I'll tell myself. Like while I'm not feeling like at home on a Sunday night, I'm not feeling like going to the gym on Monday morning. I will tell myself I'm not feeling like going to the gym in the future. How can I tell myself what I'm feeling in the future? That's what I feel right now, and where I'm at is okay. But that's a little bit of a sidebar, but your podcast is something that people can actually play and consume when their mind is actually in the wrong place, when they're telling themselves the wrong story, when they're asking themselves why they bother. When you ask yourself shitty questions, you get pretty shitty answers.
Well, you know, one thing I've realized is that when you put things on repeat, you can override the bullshit that's going on in your brain, right? So
Mhm.
I've talked about how when I'm trying to do something and everything in my mind's telling me not to, right? So this morning I got up, it's freezing cold outside. I don't want to go for a run, right? But that was part of the plan for today. Now, nobody would know if I didn't go for a run. Nobody would talk any shit. My wife wouldn't care. but I would care because I promised
You would
myself that that was part of the plan. And that's part of the plan to achieve something bigger later on down the road. So if I put off that run, I am taking that comfort, that instant gratification of staying warm in bed. But I chose not to. So I go out for that run because that's what's going to get me to where I want to be long term. So, what we tell ourselves is very, very important. And we can tell ourselves stories of achievement or we can tell ourselves stories of comfort. It really is something very important to pay attention to because if you want to achieve something far greater than yourself, you have to bypass that instant gratification, right? You have
Mhm.
to go and engage with the discomfort. You have to go and execute the plan um, for that delayed gratification to come. So for me, I know that there's a lot of people out there, Nick, that they want success, right? They want that freedom, the wealth, the better body, the sharper mind. But most people, they don't want it bad enough to make those sacrifices,
They like the
right?
idea of it, they don't like what it's gonna take to get there.
Yeah, what are you gonna have to give up, right? Because you can't have it all. You can't lay in bed all day and be comfortable and then go expect to run a half marathon. That's just it's not gonna happen. So
Well, and this is called the valley of despair in a lot of instances too, where your life isn't so bad that you need to change everything, but if you don't and you wait 10 to 15 years, you're gonna really, really regret the fact that you didn't, because it's a long, slippery slope that takes you further and further away from, what would be considered a healthy long-term path.
perfect. That's a perfect way of putting it. And then in today's day, when there's all that temptation, right? When a lot of people are busy chasing like the
It's
easy
unlimited.
win, right? Yeah, the easy win, the the quick dopamine hit, that instant gratification. But if you really think about it, every scroll on social media, every time you binge watch a series, every skip workout, right, or impulsive purchase is another trade, right? All you're
Yep.
doing is uh, you're trading comfort for the wins, and you're never going to accomplish your dreams, and that's a real issue. So I think we'll touch on some of the things today why delayed gratification is so much more important than that instant gratification. But right off the bat is the sacrifice that's gonna get you there, right? Because instant gratification comes with very little sacrifice.
Or help you keep it for that matter. I mean, there's people that go off the rails after having some great financial success, physical success, etc. Like if you are not consistent and have certain disciplines in place, you're not going to keep what you've built as well.
Do you ever
So
do you ever think that people just don't see, like they just don't know what's on the other side of the sacrifice because they've never achieved any of those small wins and been able to stay consistent enough to keep stacking them to actually get to a place of where they recognize what that delayed gratification has brought to their life?
I believe that every person has had to have experienced some form of delayed gratification in their life where upon completing something they feel a sense of accomplishment. And even down to like the silliest example of, a video game. Like you can leverage any sort of example that you can think of in your life as some sort of fuel. But I know every single day that I don't want to do something when I take the harder route, if I do the thing that I don't want to do, and sometimes that is actually just getting my ass out of bed on time to go do the things that I need to, whether it's going to the gym or work or the meeting that I need to prep for early and so forth. That can sometimes be the toughest part of that day. But on the other side of it is a sense of accomplishment and more energy for what's to come after that. So it's really stacking wins and stacking the odds in your favor.
And you're building momentum, from what it sounds like, right? With every single one of
Exactly.
those things that you execute during your day, you have a plan of 6 things that you have to get done, non-negotiables, right? No matter what happens, there could be a fucking earthquake. Those 6 things are getting done before you close your eyes at night, right? I think that's an important thing to highlight. That when we wake up, we have to move with intention, and there's things that we're just not going to put to the bottom of the list. And I think that that's what's made me successful over the years is that there's just things that I do that used to be really hard, but they're just part of my day now. That's
Mhm.
just who we always like to say, that's who we are now. And when I say we, that's me and my mind. That's who we are now. That's what we do, right? So I wake up at this time, I go and do this. I make sure that I've got this brought with me. I got my meals prepped. I'm going to the gym. I'm doing this. I'm coming home for the run. I'm doing all that shit. I'm reading the book. I'm writing in the journal. That's all stuff that has to happen every single day, non-negotiable, right? And that's what's going to help me build that mindset that can put off that instant gratification that will
Can I,
allow me to chase something bigger.
can I
Yeah,
can I challenge that same idea and say, like,
please.
those are the things that absolutely work for you, and some people might even have a simpler schedule that accomplishes the same goals, but having something that drives you and that you're in constant pursuit of is absolutely necessary, right?
I
Like,
love that.
I'll tell you right now, one thing that you'll probably hear is you need to have multiple forms of income in order to be successful. You know, the average CEO or multimillionaire has 7 forms of blah blah blah, right? I've learned that if you try to do 7 things really well, you're not going to. So if
Correct.
you can do one thing really, really well, it's probably going to be better than all the 7 of those things put together. So that being said, it's like when I think about work, it's like that is a great place that my mind goes right now, pretty constantly, and I live and breathe this. And because of that, I've gotten to see this vision come together in real time while executing on the things that I also know make me the best version of myself, which it does include reading. It includes a lot more podcasting because I can be productive while listening to podcasts and get the other things done around the house that I need to and so forth. But fitness, like it, call it investing, proper eating, like all those things are disciplines I employ in my life. But there's certain things that work for people. Meditation's one that I need to get back to because I know that I am better on the other side of it. And same with journaling. However, you can't necessarily beat yourself up for missing out on one element that works or helps benefit you. You can't beat yourself up on that. Um, at least in my opinion. In my opinion.
Well, what, from what I'm hearing you're saying, right, is I think we always need to be building something bigger than ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Whatever that may be. It's cool to have, to be really invested in your job and that, unfortunately sometimes defines people and who they are in their life. But for me, that's just a different part of my life. I
Yeah.
feel that I'm always happiest when I'm building something bigger. So when I'm doing this podcast, it's something I think about all the time. Every day I wake up, I try to figure out what's something new that I can talk about, but it excites me.
Mhm.
I'm still going to work and I'm still doing 110% there, but there's something outside of that that's
Mhm.
bigger than me that I'm doing. And I think that, like you said, everybody has something like that, or they need to find something like that, right?
Yes.
Because if you,
Right.
yeah, so if you go to work and you come home and you do nothing else to build yourself or to build a side business or whatever it might be, if it's just like you wake up, you go to work, you come home, like there's other things you could do to invest in number one, right? That will make you A, more effective in your job, be a better, friend, family member, father, whatever it is, right? And then to that point, if you're reading those books and you're studying and you're educating your mind, you're just building multiple things that are going to bring a lot of satisfaction. And that is that delayed gratification, right? The instant gratification is the coming home and throwing the TV on and just swiping on your phone the rest of the night until it's bedtime.
Yeah.
The delayed gratification comes with, hey, I'm going to build a podcast, or hey, I'm going to, build whatever. I'm going to build a shed in my backyard. Whatever something, excites somebody, you got to pursue that and put away, the sitting on the couch, that comfort, and go do things that excite you. Is that fair? Is that aligned with what you're thinking?
Absolutely. And the one reason I want to focus on my truth as Car Key Connect being the thing that I dedicate my time and energy to is because as a leader within this organization and a part owner of it, I feel absolutely 100% responsible as a leader of this organization for those that work below me. Their families, their own livelihoods, their own success. Like, I take pride in that. My ability to lead and positively impact other people's lives is the reason that I'm so impassionate about it. Because yes, people can get lost in their careers, but I also don't think that people realize how much of a positive impact they can just have in their own day-to-day life. And I know that that's something you take extremely serious with your work too.
Yeah, I think when you're in a leadership position, um, you have to live that, in and out of the office, right? The person that I am inside of work is grinding just as hard on himself outside of work, right? I want to be the best possible person I can be. Uh, and the things I do outside of work make me show up as a better person
Yeah.
in the office, right? So I also want to show everybody I work with that there's more out there for them, no matter who they are or what they're interested in. When I'm at the office, I personally like to hear more about what people have going on outside of work than the job. Now some people may have their opinion on that, but when I'm at work, I don't really want to talk about work. I want to talk about the person in front of me, what they're doing, what they're struggling with, how they're feeling. Hey, maybe just a little small talk to boost some energy for people. But I find myself to be an energy giver, and that's my responsibility. So if whatever I have to do outside the office to be that energy giver, and that's eat healthy, keep my mind right, going to the gym, getting that sleep, that's important, right? All of that stuff allows me to show up 100% for the people that need me. And you might not even realize the impact you're making on people, but you have to show up with that energy every day. You have to be the strong one. You have to continue to demand more from yourself, and lead by that example, right? So that's very important to me. I'm glad you bring up leadership. It's been a big part of my life for a long time. That's what I got my MBA in, was with a focus on leadership. So very, very close to my heart. And I think it's something that I don't ever really talk much about. So I'm glad you bring it up. That's really
Well,
cool.
and one thing I really wanted to cover with it was my birthday 2 weeks ago. I just turned 30, and at the time, every day leading up to it, the months, weeks, days, it was at the forefront of my mind. I mean, I was stewing on it. It felt like a big milestone for me, and I couldn't really comprehend why it was such a big deal. When the day actually came, it was not a big deal anymore because now I am. It's just another day. No new ailments or serious changes come as a result of aging one more day. But my thoughts were really more about reflecting on what my 20s looked like and developing myself as an individual. And I you spoke to some of what I would consider the accolades that I have, and I'm grateful to call those accolades. But I focused so much on delaying gratification in certain areas to explore the things that mattered most to me. And that was a very carefully worded sentence right there. It's because the things that mattered most to me didn't make me less of who I was. And what I mean by that is there are things that will cost you your life in the short and long run, and that chips away at you every time you do it. And then there's things that will build you up and make you stronger for the future. And it seems as though when you have youth and you don't have any know how or wisdom and so forth, people will choose those vices to really lean into. And it scares me because I know that as soon as you hit about 30, you can see the path that people are on. And more often than not, they continue to take the easier route because the harder route to completely divert and change your path. If you had eaten like shit for the last 10 years, you drank every day, you fast food, you don't go to the gym, you don't have any sort of really healthy habits outside of maybe pursuing your career. If you make the decision that you want to change your fitness, you absolutely can. And I expect that everyone does what they're supposed to for their own body, but you're stacking the odds against yourself and making it a lot harder to just delay that thing, saying, "Hey, I'll do that someday. I'll take care of it when I need to." What happens next is you develop these real ailments, these real problems as a function of neglecting to take care of yourself during, what I would consider some of the best years of your life. And unfortunately, I just think it teaches a lot of the wrong lessons. And I wish people didn't look at college as, a summer camp, but instead looked at it more like a place where you can go develop the rest of your life and, make connections and pursue things differently. I don't see college as the only path to success. Better yet, I see it as more of a setback in most situations, because financially it taps people. But I know I kind of went off on a little bit of a tangent there, but we're I want to see young people take their lives a little bit more serious and realize that, the things that you prioritize can sometimes really set you back.
Yeah. Well, we talk about, you know, delayed gratification and building things bigger than yourself, right? And I always, and I'm sure a lot of people that know me, will laugh because I believe the gym fixes everything. And, a lot of people will feel negatively about that or whatever, but it's not. I don't go to the gym to work on my body, and I know that you can relate to that, and I know a lot of people would relate to that. I go to the gym to work on my mind. The body it's an afterthought, right? So just going to the gym really won't do shit for your body. In a way, right? Because then you got to combine that with eating healthy and sleeping right and all these different things, right? So when I talk about just going to the gym, all it is, and anybody can do anything they want. It doesn't have to be the gym, but you need to go somewhere every single day or 4 days a week or 3 days a week, whatever works for you. You need to go somewhere, whether you like it or not,
And
just
do
to go
something that's
there.
hard.
Yeah, so it doesn't have to be the gym, but it needs to be a place that's inconvenient for you to go, that's going to inflict physical and mental pain on you a certain number of days a week, and you just don't fucking negotiate on that, right? Like you just don't. That's what has to happen. Just like waking up and putting your pants on. Okay. It's the same thing. Mike Ivanov is going to go to the gym. You can count on it this many days a week, whether he likes to or not. And you do that for years and years, and it just gets fucking easier. And then it's not even a thing. Like I said, it's just who we are. This is who we are now. This is what we do. We go to the gym, we eat healthy, we sleep 8 hours a night, we read 15 to 20 pages of a book every single day, whether I like it or not. That's all happens just like I'm going to eat dinner, right? So having those non-negotiables every single day, going and doing things to build something bigger. So I'm building my mind, and then it happens to be building my body, but it's not happening quickly. You go in there one time, you don't fucking notice a difference. You go in there 20, 40, 60 times, you don't notice a difference. So I always tell people, make sure you take that first picture of your body when you start going to the gym. And a lot of people are like, no, I don't want to do that. And it's like, who cares? Close your fucking eyes, take a picture of that body, because you're going to wish you had it a year from now when you want to quit
Mhm.
because you don't think you made any progress. And then you look at that picture and you say, holy shit, that's a different person. And the only reason I'm sharing that is that's happened to me many times. I'll be like, you know what? This is fucking bullshit. I'm not making any progress. I'm stuck on this plateau. And then I pull up a picture and I'm like, all right, cool. Like there is a difference, right? And that's why I track all those things. That's why I track my weight. I track, with a picture and all these different things, because you're stacking those short term wins, right? So that you can continue with that momentum to then accomplish more short term wins. If you don't have something that you can gauge progress on, you get lost very quickly. And that's where people start to feel that quit.
Well, and that's where you have the opportunity to set smart goals, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. And I'm not going to go into all the goals that I had set through my 20s, but there was a few. And I am fortunate enough to say that I had several in place that I wanted to accomplish by the time I was 30. and I've been able to accomplish those, and that is the most gratifying thing. And also knowing that none of which were handed to me. It's all a direct function of the relationships that I create, the work that I put in, and the essentially relentlessness that
So is that would you
just
say that's one of the biggest things that's kept you being able to achieve those goals is a relentless pursuit towards them, or is there something that you could give the listeners?
Abso-freaking-lutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I'll take my there's people most people that I or not most, there are many people that I know that go to the gym. You see them, they're good for 3 months, and then they're out of the rhythm for, 2 months. And then they get back in, they dabble, they dance with it, and
Can you
there's
pause
certain
right there?
times when what's that?
Just pause right there for a second. You said something that's very important. You mentioned that people will go and then they won't go, and then they'll go and they'll stop, right? But that's not just the gym. That's
Yeah,
everything in their life, right? So
right.
that's like something that for you, you've done all these things in every part of your life, right? So how you do anything is how you do everything is a saying that I love to kick around, because if you quit going to the gym, you quit eating healthy because you're not losing weight at the rate you thought you would want to, you'll quit when the fucking cards are down, right? Or you're in a hard meeting, you're in a real challenge at work, you'll quit. So what you've done by remaining relentless is you have built a set of checks and balances that will not allow you to quit. Continue.
Absolutely, absolutely, and, when you dance around with the things that you think are actually gonna make you some progress, you're gonna find yourself even more discouraged at the end of those, 3 months of consistency, and then 3 months of 0 consistency, and realizing that you keep ending up back where you started. If you keep breaking that cycle, it becomes even more discouraging. You feel like you bury yourself further in that hole. So, you gotta land on what the thing is that you're gonna stick with, and just not stop ever. Um, the greatest
How do
thing
you
I
do
heard
that?
was what's that?
How do you do that? Right?
Here, let
how
me
do
give you an
you force
example.
yourself to stay consistent?
Here's the simplest example I can think of. Well, first and foremost, you have to show up. Showing up is part of it, and you're showing up for yourself. At the end of the day, in order to create the best version of yourself, you have to show up. But a small example is like in the gym, right? The basis of bodybuilding is squat, bench, deadlift, right? Like those are the core three that everyone must do supposedly. If I barbell bench based off of my physiology, and this goes with progress in anything that you do. The more you learn about it, the more you enjoy it, the more you're a lifelong learner. You have to be an observer and a learner, and you have to make constant progress and have your sights set on what the next step looks like. Not I accomplished going to the gym every day. Now this is what I do. There's progress that takes place there. You're never a master. You're always receiving an education. You're always paying tuition. So that being said, if I go to the gym and I work with a trainer, I know more than the trainer knows about me as a 15-year lifter, right? I know how my body functions best. So if I were to work out with a trainer and we're going to go do chest day, he's going to say, "All right, we're going to start with incline bench and then flat barbell bench." And I'll go to do that, and then all of a sudden my shoulder problem flares up and I'm dealing with a bunch of issues. If I didn't continue to develop my knowledge in the area, I would not improve, and I would just hurt my body and say, yeah, lifting's bad. I hurt my shoulder. Instead, I learn different ways and methods to strengthen what's the actual ongoing issue, and then change my workouts to better cater to who I am as an individual, my own physiology. I'll tell you right now, I'm not lifting with my ego like I did when I was 18 and 19, because when you're, a little scrawny kid, all you want to do is be bigger. You know, moving from 140 pounds to now I'm creeping up on 200 with my goal of continuing to put on more mass and then, make a real bulk then cut. Things take time, man, but I guarantee you I look better now than if I didn't work out for the last 15 years of my life. I know that my gut would be hanging out over my knees. I wouldn't see my feet. So, anyways, it's enjoying the things that you're doing and being curious, employing curiosity along the way. It's enjoying the process and falling in love with it.
So in
One
your
thing
pursuit, right? In your pursuit of your goals, what I'm hearing you say, right, is that it's very important to make adjustments. If something isn't going right or there's some sort of pain points, address the pain point, make an adjustment, continue to pursue the goal. Not, okay, that's the goal. Here's some pain. Here's an issue. Let me quit. Because if you quit
this
when your
isn't for me.
shoulder hurt, right? If you quit when your shoulder hurt, you would have stopped many, many years ago. But you did things, you educated yourself, you made adjustments, and then you plotted the next step forward. That is probably the best tool you could possibly use to pursue long-term gratification, right? Multiple adjustments, multiple changes because of, outside inputs that you didn't predict. And, you just can't let it kick you off your path. Is that fair?
Absolutely, and, one certainty that I employ in my life is I never will claim to be a master in any field, but I'm a firm believer that if you were to place me into a different industry tomorrow and I needed to be a salesman in that industry, or if I needed to learn a new technical skill starting tomorrow, that I would do what's required in order to fulfill that role. I'm a firm believer in doing what is required. And doing what's required isn't always fun. There's been times where my back has been against the wall. One thing I probably haven't talked about on this, or I talked about on my podcast at one point, my back was entirely against the wall with Car Key Connect. I have people that will tell me, must be great working for your father's business. Now, I am a part owner in this business now, and I've negotiated my way into being a part owner because I was fortunate. I was fortunate enough to land a position there, but it was all the skills that I had built up over the 7 years leading up into that situation that have allowed me to be where I am today. My back was against the wall with Car Key Connect. It was founded with one person as the main locksmith, and that person was supposed to build the business. I was brought on a few years later after a couple hires, and they left to work alongside him and so forth. Um, I was brought on as the manager, but it wasn't told to that locksmith that I was his boss per se. Him and I were meant to work together. Well, it's a weird dynamic when you have one person that's a technician and fulfilling the jobs, and then someone trying to work with that other person and tell them how to make their days better. So, long story short, we hire a guy. He trains him for 6 months. This guy leaves. Hire another guy. Wondering why it's just why the culture's bad, why things aren't going well. And fast forward, a couple more months, he's now giving his notice, the main guy, the one that this was built around, the one that excuse me, the one that has all the technical knowledge in this field. And I have 2 years of experience, 2 years of experience as a 16-year-old that was essentially interning in high school from 2010, 2011, 2012. This guy leaves the company, and I have a 22-year-old that has been trained for 2 months and has hated his life and has worked under this other guy that just creates toxic environments. I asked the guy when he's leaving, "Are you taking any customers with you?" He says no. I say, "All right." He leaves after our best month yet because I wouldn't give him a raise and we wouldn't fulfill what was being requested. I did a cost benefit analysis. The benefits didn't outweigh the liabilities. My back's now against the wall. The only person that can fulfill on the services is me, and I don't know what I need to do. I'm training myself at midnight in my house using these special lock picks and buying all the tools that I need to and learning the ins and outs and studying and watching YouTube videos and every last piece of information I can find and get my hands on. I'm just consuming it constantly to the point where 6 months later, we rehired the guy that worked for us before that left because it was a toxic environment and grew the company to beyond where we were after losing several customers as well and re-engineering the entire company and culture around it. Fast forward to now, we have 8 employees and 5 trucks in a retail store.
Come a
That
long way,
didn't
huh?
happen by mistake. My back was against the wall and I didn't know how to do what I needed to do. and I made sure I knew what I needed to do. So sometimes you have to do what's required. And what's required is a disproportionate amount of effort to offset all the negative shit you've done leading up to that moment. So that's a
Hey,
little bit of a full circle story there.
well, it's important. It's important to mention, some things that I heard when you were talking and telling that story. I hear that you went all in, which is a huge thing, right? You became obsessed with your trade and your craft, and you pursued it relentlessly. But also, what I see in the terms of delayed gratification is that you had done a lot of jobs in that field, to move up to where you are today. You've made a lot of moves. You've had to make a lot of hard decisions, including have a lot of hard conversations. And these are all things that I highlight, as to being very, very important for many parts of your life, to be able to be ready for that opportunity when it comes, right? Because we're just cruising around doing the best we can, working on ourselves until that opportunity presents itself, right? But if you're not
Mhm.
doing those things, working on yourself every day, preparing for the unknown, when that opportunity comes, you won't be ready, and then you'll tell yourself a story as to why you're really, what it comes down to, too scared to go and take that opportunity that you've always wanted. And Nick, I sometimes catch myself doing that to myself, and luckily with the circle that I've had around me, they also call me out on that. So it's not odd that somebody would say, "Hey, Mike, you're just scared." And before I used to get really defensive about it, but now I hear it and I listen to it and then identify that it's actually true. And then once you call it out, you can go attack it and you can go, kill that opportunity that you've always wanted. But the mind likes to be comfortable. We talk about that all the time. But throughout your journey with Car Key, from when you started there to where you are today, it's been a very uncomfortable journey. I know that you and I have talked many times, and I've been able to hear the stress level in your voice and know what you're dealing with. But at the same time, what I want to say about that is you still went to those places and did those things that needed to be done, even outside of work. And I think that a lot of people, when they have a really hard job or they had a really hard day, it takes everything else out of their life. And then you get the "I don't have enough time," type of excuses, or the, "I'm so tired," and all this stuff. And I heard somebody say something the other day that you should be fucking tired. That's the whole point,
Yeah.
right? Is if that's how you get to a place
If
of
you're not tired,
success.
you don't give your all.
You got to
Y
empty the tank every single day, Nick, to the bottom. Don't keep any fuel in the tank. And the way that and some things that are important to talk about is what I say to myself. And I would like to hear some of the things that you say to yourself too, to remain consistent like that. But there is a possibility that if you go to bed with half a tank, right, there's a possibility you might not wake up the next day, and you left a half a tank of gas on the table. So, in my mind, I always think about that, where it's like when I want to sit on the couch for an hour and waste some time, it's like, well, what am I going to accomplish? And if I wasn't going to wake up tomorrow, would I be sitting here staring at the fucking television or swiping through Instagram, right? So whatever you got to frame in your mind to get you to do these things that you don't want to do, you got to tell yourself that story just to manipulate yourself into doing it. Because if you don't do it, the bill from regret is going to fucking suck.
And, one thing that I really like to put into perspective is you can shift from being a consumer to a creator, and that doesn't necessarily mean you only consume, or you only create content on Instagram or post podcasts or what have you. But you create outcomes of your own life, and you enter the creativity space, and you begin exploring life with a curiosity uh, more curiosity, and a demeanor that shifts. I gotta say, it I'm gonna sound like a total hippie, but I can feel the change in, like, the energy that I'm putting out there in the world, and I am so freaking grateful for every day that I have. And now, one of the biggest shifts I feel as though I'm making as I move into my 30s. I'm realizing that life isn't necessarily all about me either, and being of service to other people and improving those lives around me is what I can do, because my life is what my experience it is. So if I come in the front door and I'm all upset, and I'm not gonna make Sarah's day a good day because I'm a little off because I just got stuck in traffic, I worked late, and this, that, and the other thing didn't go the way I expected. I'm now hurting other people's lives with the things that I'm carrying with me. So do what you can. Do what you can to control the outcomes that you can change. But don't wear everything, and don't let everyone know that you're wearing everything. I mean, stay present. Let live and let live, I guess.
Be the best version of yourself you can every day. People count on that, especially as a leader. Um, everybody's
And
got shit going
sometimes
on in
swallow
their
your
life,
pride.
right? Yeah, everybody's got things going on, and even when I was at my worst with my status, as far as the brain went, was I was still making appearances. You wouldn't have known a goddamn thing was going on with me. Maybe might have been a little off at times, but you would never think I was where I was at.
Mhm.
And not that that's like a great thing, but you were talking about how, you just got to be present. And for me, that kind of strikes a chord, because as an energy giver, you have to bring the best you possibly can muster for everybody else, right? Because energy is contagious, right? That's all real. When you mentioned that you could feel the energy around you being different in the world and things like that, that's all real. You have the ability, as every person does, to walk in the room and bring the energy that day. You can, it's a choice though. And that's where you have to decide how you're going to show up. And that's why I try to load up my corner with all these different things that I do outside of work.
Stack the
You
odds in
know,
your favor.
yeah, I
Yeah.
just need extra energy to give it to other people because they need it to do things in their life, and they're very thankful for it. You could probably talk to people that are close to you, and they'll probably tell you, "Oh, you know what? Hey, I love Nick because he always, makes me smile, or he makes me feel better when I'm done talking to him." There's people in my life that when I need some energy, I call them up, and I'll just tell them, "Hey, I need a little bit of energy right now. What do you got for me?"
Mhm.
So energy's real. It's something that
I
I've
don't think
always been
people
aware of.
communicate that. Like, that's something that you actually need to say and vocalize to other people. It's like where you're at with your actual energy. When we ask people how they are, but they don't answer honestly. Good, how are you? Living the dream. Like, there's prompts that are
Yeah,
pre-programmed in people's minds where they don't actually connect. They just spit things out and have a pre-programmed response. It's just so
it's
silly.
an empty answer. Yeah, it's an empty ask, and it's always an empty answer. But when you meet the right people, or you put yourself out there and you make yourself approachable enough, you don't get those same answers. It's kind of interesting to see when I sit down with somebody one on one and ask them how they're doing. I find that it's not always like a good "how are you." It's just a story comes, good, bad, or indifferent, and that's what I love about people is their stories. So sharing mine is just one way of inviting others to share theirs with me. I find that throughout my career and my time here on this planet, I always like to volunteer things about myself first in hopes to make others feel comfortable enough to share what they're dealing with me. And I know that somebody's dealing with something because I can see it on their face. I can see it in their eyes. I can hear it in their voice. Because once you've dealt with something and you've struggled with certain things, you can recognize it in others. And I feel that it's my duty when I recognize it in somebody else to ask them about it and to help them approach it and fix it ultimately, right? So in the podcast, that's what I do. I'm calling out the things that I think others might be struggling with because I know I struggled with, and There was nobody that I could put on to listen to help me with my issues. I had to collect this information from all different places. And I think that moving forward, once this is all done, if there ever is a time where it's done, there will be something in place that I'm very proud of. And that talks to the delayed gratification, because I'm just stacking the bricks right now, one after the other, in hopes of building a house one day, metaphorically, right?
Hmm. What's your what's your favorite piece of feedback that you've received thus far? Because I know people are listening to your podcast, and you got to be hearing some stories at this point.
The best compliments that I have gotten, and I'm glad you asked, because I was uh, I was talking to my therapist the other day, and just so everybody knows, that's probably one of the best things I ever did for my entire life, not just my mental health. So, huge recommendation if you don't have a therapist, get one. Um, Talk about stacking the odds in your favor. But anyway, best compliment I got, and it came from three people, said the same thing. They said, and I was, like I said, I was mentioning it to my therapist because I was very proud of it, and it caught me off guard. Three different people told me, they said, Mike, I feel like you're talking to me. And that was, I just really want to sit there and think about that, because that was very special to me. I couldn't stop thinking about it. And, I tell things to my therapist at times because I want to be, I try to be humble, but in front of her, I can pat myself on the back a little bit, and that's what I was hoping somebody would get from that, because I'm talking to them, yes, but I'm talking to myself as well, and I think
Hmm.
that's where, I hope it never offends anybody, because that's just how I talk to myself, and I know that the things I'm saying other people need to hear, but they need to hear it from a third party perspective. But the fact that they can hear it from a third party and feel like I'm speaking to them was like the ultimate compliment for me. Somebody texted me on Thanksgiving and said, "Hey man, like great job, keep it up. I feel like you're talking to me," and it stayed with me all week. So I'd like to be there for those people. And that's like the whole purpose. So I feel that this is much bigger than me. Um, and that has just been something that really hit home with me. And it was very special. And I had a couple other people just kind of say, "Hey, dude, you got to keep doing it. You got to keep doing it. It's going to change somebody's life." And you know what? For me, I'm like, all right, cool. Like, yeah, at times, like to some of the episodes, kind of, I don't edit them, right? So it's like, is it one pass and I make a mistake or two? Yeah. Um, but I'll
I
tell
was
you,
under the impression you spent some serious time editing them. That's
no
impressive.
edits. I don't know how to edit with this system. So whatever it is, it is. And it's good pressure to kind of put my back up against the wall to make sure I rip it in a quality fashion for everybody. But yeah, I mean, what did you get out of it, man? Like, is there anything that stuck out to you? Is that feedback I'm getting kind of spot on? Like, are you feeling like I'm talking to you?
Oh, 100%. If there's anything that comes back to you positive at all, it really fuels the fire. I there was so many cool stories and about people listening to it that I would have never expected to. And just hearing that one, it helps them feel even closer connected to me as family members and friends and so forth. And two, that it helps them in their own personal life and gives them perspective that they didn't have. And that is a wonderful thing. So to be
It,
able to
it
deliver
gives me
that and just continue to grow this, you're gonna kill it.
it gives me something too. And the reason I think, so I ran from it for so long. Um, I was afraid to get into it because I knew that, like, if I told somebody I was going to do it, I knew that I could not possibly disappoint, and that I wouldn't, once I started, I wouldn't be able to quit, because I wouldn't be able to look myself in the fucking mirror knowing that I told everybody I was going to do a podcast and then only made it 2 episodes, only made it 5 episodes, right? So I ran from it for so long because I knew what the work involved was going to be. And again, I think it's the best thing I've ever done. Um, And it's like this open accountability, right? Like, so if you want to know if Mike Ivanov is full of shit or if he really holds true to what he says, all you got to do is jump on and see if there's a new episode this week, right? Because that's how you know I'm holding myself accountable every single weekend, recording a podcast, just like when I was getting my master's every single weekend for 2 fucking years doing homework, no matter where I was. I can remember there were times that I was in Tahoe, right? I want to just ride my bike, but there I am doing schoolwork until I can do that. I was on a beautiful island in Maine. What am I doing? Doing schoolwork until I can, until I can get out and enjoy myself, right? So for me, this is something that everybody can check in and see if Mike Ivanov is staying accountable. And I will never, ever, when I put it out there in the universe, and this is a tip for everybody, put it out in the universe, tell people what you're going to do, because I guarantee you, you will not want to tell them why you didn't do it. So for me, I put it out there and I know I'm going to fucking accomplish it. But at the same time, whatever I'm selling, you better believe I'm living, right? That I'm doing all those things that I talk about doing. So when I get home at night and I'm tired and I want to fucking sit down and make an excuse, well, I tell everybody else not to make an excuse. So therefore, guess what? As a leader, I'm living by the same standard I'm expecting everybody else to live by. So I'm going out and I'm getting that running underneath the headlamp, 32 degrees, doesn't matter what's going on outside, right? Pitch black, I'm out there. Okay. Because I told everybody I was going to be out there. That's the difference, right? So my best thing I could tell anybody is if you want to be somebody that defines something by keeping your word, right? Because I think that that's all we really have at the end of the day is our word. That will motivate you to accomplish so many things. And maybe motivation is the wrong word. It will propel you. It will give you the energy to do it because you are not going to disappoint those people that look up to you or those people that count on you, right? You're not going to let them down no matter what. And that's how I am inspired every day because I'm not going to let the people down that are watching from afar or that are right next to me or that people that know me. It's just like, I'm not going to disappoint anyone. I'm going to hold true and I'm going to lead. And that's what this is. And guess what, man? They always say leadership is a lonely road. It is, but I'm willing to walk that because I may have inspired 1 or 2 people, and that's worth it, man, because some people inspired me when I was at my lowest, and I just feel that I got to hold that line for everybody else.
Being responsible for other people's growth, I didn't realize that that was going to be the outcome of being a manager, so to speak. And
Yeah.
man, I can't think of anything more fulfilling than being a good leader and pursuing that. On the note of education, I love education for a lot of reasons, and there's a piece of me that's tempted to even go back to college for possibly a doctorate. Now, I don't know what the doctorate would be in at this point because I have my MBA. A doctorate in business seems pretty freaking odd to me. I think the best way to get really good at business is by doing a lot of business. But uh, the thing that I loved about school was I was always dedicating that time to something else, and there was always that priority, like you were talking about, and prioritizing ongoing education. It can be propelled on your own, but having it organized for you does make it a little bit easier because you have a grade on the other side of it and there's a dollar figure tied to it. So it does push you a little bit. But that being said, it's a good thing to have in place is structure to focus on developing yourself physically, mentally, spiritually, and so forth on your
Yeah,
own time,
absolutely.
but rigorously.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, nothing that comes easy is worthwhile. So when you talk about education, it takes a long time to get some accreditation, right? With different programs, right? And that takes those daily steps, stepping into the discomfort, making the sacrifices to hopefully get whatever that degree is that you're chasing. And there's many other things like that. You hear me talk about running often. That's another thing that you have to build up to. You have to do things that are very uncomfortable to then do something that is even more uncomfortable. But when you achieve that, right? So when you got your master's, and I know for when I got mine, it was probably one of the happiest moments that I've had in my lifetime, because I made so many sacrifices to achieve that, during times that I felt it was impossible. While I was promoted into a new position that I was super uncomfortable with, that was already scary as shit. And now I'm in the middle of doing my master's, in the middle of trying to learn a completely a role 6 times larger than I thought I was capable of at the time. But stepping into those challenges, and then during that whole pain and process, and I've told you personally about times where I was sitting at the kitchen table crying with my head in my hands. That's growth. The fucking tears running down your face when you're trying to just stack that brick to move on, to the next, to then achieve that climb. Right. There is many times just sitting there, kitchen table, crying, head in my hands, overwhelmed, wanted to quit. And I think the tears were just the pain because I knew I wasn't going to quit, and the frustration and the passion all coming out. And I don't know, I used to be kind of like weirded out by crying and stuff. And, people probably make that, maybe it's not as masculine, I guess, as I like to think it is. But um, sitting there crying because I was pushing so hard and so outside of my comfort zone, I think qualifies me to talk a little bit more about it in a deeper detail. And I think people should fucking listen, because I know that a lot of people have never pushed themselves to tears, and don't even know what that feels like. But once you do that, push past it, you're unstoppable. You just realize that you are in control. And I think the tears and the frustration comes from that struggle of control where you think you're not. But when you realize you can make the conscious decision to move forward, I think that's where all the power kind of starts with the accomplishment.
What's funny about all these topics is you can think of 100 different sayings and metaphors that come along, like just these ongoing parables. What's the term? It just phrases that people use over and over, and they're constantly regurgitated. They're motivational quotes and so forth. But so many of them are true, but you don't experience that or understand or believe in them until you experience them firsthand. And it's pretty profound when you go, "Oh, like the gear just turned to the point where it's like fully comprehend what this means at such a level that I don't know that I'll ever be the person I once was." Like that's the significance. That's the level of change that has taken place for me mentally over the last few years to make me realize I will never be who I once was. And that's another thing that really surprised me a little bit, or made me realize I'm getting older, and I was challenged with it with turning 30. It was just, you're not always going to have your youth. Like, time is passing, so what you do with it is actually really important. And I think people should have fun, but I think people should also, live a life of curiosity and be the best that they can.
Yeah, but it's all perspective. Growth is fun, right? When you look at it long term, growth is a fun thing. I've never been so much happier. Yeah, I'm miserable day to day, right? Like, yeah, there's definitely days where
There's
I'm
things
fucking
that are,
miserable.
yeah,
However, if I zoom out and look, like, over the last year, like, I've had some of the highest points of my entire life.
right.
And it's not because I won the lottery. No, it's because I built towards something and accomplished it. It was something that I put out there in the universe that I didn't think I'd be able to do, but I
And
knew if
it
I
came
put it out
back.
there, I'd fucking do it. Right? Like, it's that simple. Um, it's that simple. Take the risk, put it out there, take steps towards accomplishing it, because anybody listening, anybody out there can accomplish whatever they want. It's, are they gonna have the consistency and build the will so that they do exactly what's required, right? You mentioned it earlier. A lot of people want to say they want something just to say it, right? Talk is fucking cheap. Um, Take action towards it, Measure it, take more action, measure it, make an adjustment, more action. And you do that consistently over and over again for a year, you'll become unrecognizable. You'll look back at pictures, you won't even know who that is.
I can't think of anything more honorable than to be a man of your word, as long as your word is good. um, but being good to your word, being true to the things that you say, being true
It's
to
all we have.
yourself. Yeah, seriously,
It's all we
seriously.
have, Nick, especially in a leadership position. You do what you say you're going to do, and you'll see a lot of young leaders that say things and don't do them, and that's the quickest way for people to lose faith in who you are. It's the quickest way
Mhm.
to lose people from following you. If you can't do something, then you communicate that you can't do something. You don't lie to people and then it not turn out to be true for them, right? So in leadership, always tell the truth, be as honest as possible, whether it's something somebody wants to hear or not. And I always talk about hard conversations. Um, you have to have those, whether you're coming apart on the inside, you got to retain the emotions you want to let fly and have those conversations so that people can grow. Because you mentioned it earlier that there's a responsibility that we have to help others learn, and people can't learn if you're not honest with them and give them that feedback that a lot of people shy away from giving them. So I think for me, I always come from a place of growth. I expect others to come to me in the same regard, right? So I feel that anybody I work with, anybody I know, I owe it to them to give them a perspective of how they can do better, how they can push harder, and different things in their life that they could possibly optimize to live their dreams. It's very important.
Absolutely. Well, we went in a few different directions here as to all-encompassing topic of delayed gratification, but there's so many different ways that you can peel it back, so many different layers. There's no there's no one way to accomplish everything that you'd want to, but man, having some direction, just expressing some curiosity, employing some good values in your life can just it can make such a wonderful life. So,
Have a plan, right? Have a
yeah.
plan that's, and like you said, measure it, make adjustments, keep moving forward. But I'll tell you right now, and as we sum this thing up, is nothing that comes easy is worthwhile. Um, it will bring you some very temporary happiness and very temporary satisfaction. But the things that you have sacrificed to get and worked for years to get, those create stories, right? Where um, as we age and as we move through life, we only really remember stories. We don't really remember
Mhm.
individual situations. So what
The
I look at it
feelings
is
for that
I'm
matter.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm building a story that I'm going to remember. And even though it's painful every single day, the sacrifices I'm making, I know are what's going to allow me to live my dreams. And I know that that won't be today. It won't be tomorrow. It won't be 2 years from now. But the decisions I make today will pay me back 2 years from now. So I've been making some good decisions over the last few years, and I'm starting to see those things come through. And I just want everybody to understand what that looks like and that it's real and that they can do it too. It's very special to me.
It's all good stuff, man. I can't wait to see where this goes. I'm following you.
Yeah.
You got a
Well, hey,
fan
listen,
for life.
Nick, thank you, man.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on.
Any last wisdom you want to share with everybody before we lock this thing up?
Oh geez. Let me grab something really quick here.
Well, I'll tell you right now, Nick, they're used to that hard hitting, in your face approach where we don't allow excuses. We talk a lot of shit and we're really honest with ourselves. So, it needs to align with that. You just let me know when you're ready because I could talk all night. I just think it's special that we've met each other, and because I know like what you've given me, you've made it into my journals a few times, and I'm proud of you to see what you've accomplished. And I know that it may be all shiny and bright on the outside, but I know you've struggled. I know you've second guessed everything, and I know that sometimes you're not sure if you're doing the right things. But I want to let you know that you are, and from a third party perspective, I believe you're doing a
Well,
great fucking job. Keep it up.
thank you so much, brother. And the thing is, like, I can't deliver the final hard hitting message like you can. I will throw something out here, but I got a quick little story. You know, if you look at my upbringing, my life, you'd say that kid had it made every step of the way. I had my own hardships growing up, but one thing I got to see right from the get go is, my dad didn't come from money by any means. His family struggled. His mother and father were divorced. Father was an alcoholic. These were characteristics of these people back then. They're different people now, and life has changed and they've evolved. But what happened was I was born into a mobile home, which I was born into a home. I'm grateful for that. But I got to watch my parents scrape their way to the top from having nothing. My dad started as a maintenance guy at an auction when I was born, and he worked his way up to running the business. And that's what's afforded him many opportunities through life. My parents, while I had a wonderful childhood and so forth, one thing that they instilled in me was a work ethic and knowing that I have to appease other people in my life and I need to support other people in my life in order to have a good life overall. And the lessons that I've learned through the last 20 years have enabled me to be where I am. I'm grateful for everything that they've done. However, I'm not even going to go into any of the challenges. All I can say is you gotta stack the bad, and man, you got to look at that as some fuel to make sure that you don't fall back to those circumstances. I'm so grateful for the things that I've built, but it came as a result of my parents teaching me all the right freaking lessons and not just giving me a life. They taught me a life. And that is a much different story than most. So success isn't built in a day. It's earned in the moments when no one's watching through discipline, persistence, and the relentless pursuit of growth. That's
I
what I
love it. I love it. Thank you for sharing that, Nick. Something I didn't know about you, and takes a lot to share that with everybody. So, thanks for having me on, brother. Thanks for coming and joining me. I'll land the plane right now, and we'll be out of here. So, here's the real question that you need to ask yourself: are you one of them? Are you someone who says you want success, but when it comes down to the grind, you back off? Do you choose temporary pleasure over long term purpose? Are you living life in a way that aligns with the future you claim to want, or are you lying to yourself? Talk is cheap, motherfucker.